Welcome to the Her Health Podcast, transforming health for women and girls at risk, where we empower women and girls to take charge of their health and well-being. Join us as we shine a spotlight on issues affecting women and girls' health and explore ways to create positive change. Get ready to be inspired and empowered as we discuss health, advocacy, and empowerment for women and girls at risk. Please be advised that this podcast may cover sensitive topics such as gendered violence. We understand that these discussions can be difficult to listen to. If you feel uncomfortable or need support, we encourage you to prioritize your well-being. Consider exploring our other podcasts if these topics are triggering for you. Resources can be found in the description.
Welcome back to the Her Health Podcast, where we explore real issues shaping the health and well-being of women, girls, and gender diverse people. I'm your host, Alexandria Lazochek, and today we're joined by an incredible panel from the Atlas Institute for Veterans and Families, Petra, Victoria, Robin, Caitlin, Ashley. Thank you all so much for being here today. And in this episode, we'll discuss how the Atlas Institute co-designs resources on intimate partner violence, or IPV, with veterans, family members, and service providers. Our conversation will cover the realities of IPV within the military and veteran communities, and the role of stigma and isolation, and how inclusive collaboration can strengthen mental health supports and promote safety and healing. And listeners will gain an insight into the unique challenges faced by military families and the importance of lived experience in shaping practical and trauma-informed resources and a way to engage with ongoing work at the Atlas Institute. So let's get started. Thank you so much for joining me again. And to begin, could you introduce the Atlas Institute and explain its mission in supporting veterans and their families across Canada?
Perfect. Thank you, Alexandria. My name is Ashley Mulligan, and I'm the Director of Partnerships and Stakeholder Engagement at the Atlas Institute for Veterans and Families. So the Atlas Institute is a national intermediary organization that's funded by Veterans Affairs Canada. Established in 2019, our mandate is to work with Canadian Armed Forces and RCMP veteran families, service providers, and researchers to bridge the divide between research and practice so that veterans and families can get the best possible mental health care and supports. We achieve our mandate through the functions of research, knowledge mobilization, coaching and training, convening, and public policy influence. What I think is most important about our origin story is that Atlas was conceived from the ground up. It was through years of advocacy that veterans and family members where they identified the following high-level needs that weren't being met. So that includes more appropriate services, more research, more useful and usable information, and more connection between people. So Atlas exists to strengthen mental health services by addressing these gaps. And everything that we do at Atlas has CAF and RCMP veterans and families in mind as the people who benefit from our work. Our priority areas and topics of focus come from the community. So whether that's from the veteran and family members on staff at Atlas, or our strategic reference group, to our volunteer cadre, to our advisory committee, or broader engagements, we work with the community to support the community that we serve.
Thank you so much, Ashley, for diving into that. It's really wonderful to hear about community collaborations and how that's leading into how services, or even the items that you've created, are going to be formatted for people of lived experience or people that are interested to be better advocates or allyships. I really appreciate it. And this presentation that you've highlighted, that IPV resources that were co-designed with veterans, families, and service providers. And why was co-design, as you mentioned, such an important approach for this work? And how did it shape the outcome?
Yeah, I'll take this one for the team. I'm Robin. I am part of our partnership and stakeholder engagement team at the Atlas Institute, and had the pleasure of co-leading this project with my colleague Victoria. I'm also a veteran family member. Both of my parents served in the Canadian Armed Forces. So in terms of our work, like Ashley was saying, everything we do at Atlas has both CAF and RCMP veterans and families in mind as to the people who will benefit from our work. One of the best ways we've found to ensure that our work benefits the community is to involve them directly in our process. So with the co-design approach, we recruited folks for an advisory committee, and they gave us feedback, advice over a series of monthly meetings to help shape those resources. And their input was included in all aspects of the project, from determining the topics to the visuals and the imagery that would be used in the guides. The co-design process not only helped create better resources at the end of the day, ones that were meaningful, usable, and impactful, but also better outcomes more broadly for the community, given the trust and empowerment from having engaged them in an authentic way and building these resources collaboratively together. And lastly, I'll mention that kind of creating knowledge in collaboration with our community is essential for us to create something that actually supports learning, healing, and change. So that's how I think the co-design process influenced our work.
Thank you so much, Robin, for really diving into that co-design process. And it's really wonderful to hear that this co-design was involving partners at every step of the process. And I know that not a lot of co-designs does that. And I really do appreciate you guys doing that and taking the time to consider that and allowing trust and empowerment for individuals involved. I really, truly appreciate it. And talking about families, many families face very unique challenges connected to military and veteran life. And how did you ensure that those resources reflected those specific realities?
Yeah, I'll continue on that front. In terms of that, I'd say the co-design approach was really key here. So we did have family members and veterans service providers, all with that lived and professional expertise on the topic that could provide detailed context and nuance that we needed to capture in order for the resources to really resonate with the community. Specifically, with their input, we were able to be intentional about using neutral language, recognizing that there can be significant stigma surrounding intimate partner violence. We also wanted to acknowledge both the strengths and complexities of military life, that sense of loyalty, the resilience, the community that can, though be beneficial, also make help seeking challenging at times. And much of this comes through in the myths and realities section of the resources, reflecting the realities of service, deployments, transitions, all those cultural norms that really shape those relationships. Additionally, in the support section of the resources, we included information that acknowledges some of the realities of military and veteran lifestyles, like rural and remote living, which can make it challenging to get supports that are needed. And this meant being mindful about including supports that are available at kind of provincial and territorial directories, and encouraging folks to also look for local supports where available. And I think my colleague Caitlin would also like to speak to this question.
Hi, my name is Caitlin LeRiviere, and I'm a social worker and counselor at the Esquimalt Military Family Resource Center. I have been working with military families for over 9 years and supporting them with intimate partner violence. And I think it was really important to highlight what specifically increases the risk of IPV within military and veteran families. So, for example, isolation is huge. And in the context of military families, you think most families are moving around and they're being relocated every 2 to 3 years. So it's very common that families are living in a region that is not connected to where they grew up or connected to where their family support system is. If they've moved every couple of years, it's been hard to create a robust community support. And so that can be a specific risk factor for military families. There are also higher rates of post-traumatic stress disorder within the military and veteran community, and potential power imbalances in the home. So again, if you go back to the relocation aspect of military careers, if people are moving every 2 to 3 years, it's very common that the partner of the military member, their job isn't going to progress in the same way as it would if they were staying in one place. So oftentimes the partner of a military member is financially dependent on the military member, and that can provide an extra unique risk factor. And just stating those things and having them available for people to see, it's kind of that concept of name it to tame it, because I've I've sat across from many people that say, like, this situation is very hard. And it's nice to be able to show them these and say, yes, for most people going through intimate partner violence, their situation is very hard. And with the extra complexities of military or veteran lifestyles, such as isolation, power imbalance in the home, PTSD, etc., it's a little bit extra hard for you. And then that's when you see people's posture start to sort of melt, and them start to understand that, okay, this is validating my experience. And of course, this is really hard because look at all of these other factors that I'm also dealing with. Another goal of the resources was to reduce the existing stigma that exists within the military and veteran community around intimate partner violence. And I know this stigma also exists within the civilian community. However, there's an added layer of vulnerability within the military community if someone was to reach out for help and disclose that there was intimate partner violence in the home. That information could be passed on to the military member's chain of command. It could impact their job, it could impact their position, and then impact the family's well-being. And so the resource does a great job of not only providing information, very accessible information, but providing confidential places that people can go to access support and hopefully decrease some of the fear that people have around reaching out for support.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Robin and Caitlin, for diving into that. It's really great to hear that the resource came about of a sensitivity for both accounting for rural and remote areas, as well as when families move around, because for service. And I'm really glad to hear that. I like the phrase you used, Caitlin, name it to tame it, that you're not only just spreading information and knowledge for people that may be interested, you're giving them an empowerment to feel like they're not alone in this, but as well as reducing stigma at the same time. Thank you so much for diving into that. I really appreciate it. And I wanted to learn more about practical tools and strategies. So, what are some of the practical tools and strategies within the IPV resource that you think will be the most helpful for families and service providers?
Thank you, Alexandra, for that question. I'm Victoria Carmichael. I work on the knowledge mobilization team at the Atlas Institute, and I helped co-lead the project with Robin and our advisory committee. So I'll kick us off with this answer, and then I think I'll open it up to Petra or Caitlin if you wanted to add anything. But yeah, I think one of the sections that stands out to me, particularly in the first guide, which is all about that identifying identifying an unhealthy or abusive relationship and learning ways to navigate that, is that myths and realities section. Some of the myths that we actually included in that piece were ones that the advisory group actually identified as very common within military and veteran families, and also ones that can make it very, very challenging for people to kind of, like Caitlin was saying, name what's happening or feel comfortable accessing support. And so I think those are really helpful, that section particularly, both for families and for service providers, to help people either shift, how they're seeing their situation and maybe questioning their assumptions, which may or may not be preventing them from getting help, for example. And then another section within that first resource that I think is particularly helpful is that signs of abuse section. So we deliberately crafted that to really invite folks who are reading to engage in active reflection and considering what some of the unhealthy and often subtle patterns of behaviors that might be showing up in their relationships. And this could really help, service providers talk with families, help them articulate what they're seeing or what they're not seeing in their own relationships. And I think that's a very valuable tool again. And then just briefly for the second guide, which is all about talking to children, there is that myths and reality section again, which of course has some more relevant myths for talking to kids, or in the context of your experience having children when you're in an unhealthy or an abusive relationship. And I think that's a very incredibly valuable tool for the same reasons. But the other one that I think I'm most proud of that we all pulled together was the conversation guide part. And Caitlin kind of talked about this in the presentation about how it really gives those tangible, practical examples of how folks can really understand what supportive language sounds like. And learn things about pacing or timing or, following up after the conversation, how to get ready for that type of conversation, and making sure in the process that they feel comfortable having that conversation. They can take some of that brain energy away from having to think about all the things that they might want to say, and maybe use the guide to almost as a checklist on some examples of what they might include. And together, I think that can really make some of those tough conversations a lot easier for folks. But I don't know, Caitlin or Petra, if you wanted to add anything.
Yeah, thank you so much, Victoria. Yeah, I feel like I'm always questioning my assumptions all the time. So I'm really glad to hear that, like, you, with the guides and the resources, that it is including that questioning their assumptions for this particular area. I think that's really important and to think about and for people to read and understand. And it's really also great to hear that you've had split it up a little bit into having myths to talking about these situations with your kids or in situations where children may be involved. I truly appreciate you discussing that a little bit more. And practical steps, even though it sounds so simple and basic, just having like those what to do in this situation or what this may look like or how to get this started is, I feel like, going to be very beneficial for a lot of people. And I wanted to go forward into collaboration. I know that I've been writing collaboration a lot throughout this podcast, but it is so essential in this work. And I'm just curious if you could tell us about how service providers and researchers work engaged alongside veterans and families in this process.
Yeah, thanks, Alexandra. It's Robin again here. And in addition to the members of our advisory committee being from diverse perspectives, so that did include a few service providers and researchers, as well as those with lived experience, we also consulted with other organizations at the very outset of the project. Victoria and I had calls with other groups working in this space, and a few of them additionally, in addition to kind of helping us kind of scope out some of our initial work and sharing with us what they're doing in this space, also later on in the process we're able to provide feedback once we had a draft resource to, again, help make sure we're all kind of headed in the right direction together and aren't duplicating efforts. Additionally, Atlas has a medical advisor who provided feedback on the resources from the perspectives of a psychiatrist to make sure we were being accurate with especially that section around post-traumatic stress disorder and IPV. And then all of the feedback from various folks was then combined with the information from kind of current research studies and best practices to ensure that the resources are both experience and evidence informed.
Definitely. It's really glad to hear that these resources are evidence informed and related to the current research, as you mentioned, but also it kind of allowing lived experience to also shape the way that these resources are formed. Because yes, it might be one way to look at it in research, but when it translates to individuals that may be using these resources, it might be completely different. So I'm really glad that you got both perspectives to kind of sorry, I'm going to cut this out later, both perspectives to then merge into creating this resource. I truly appreciate it. And from someone listening who wants to learn more or make use of these resources, I'm curious to where they should start and how they could stay informed about the ongoing work at Atlas.
Absolutely. All of Atlas's resources are fully available in French and in English on our website, which is atlasveterans.ca. We encourage you to take a look at our suite of IPV resources we've developed. In addition to other topics, our organization has done work in from traumatic brain injury to military sexual trauma, post-traumatic stress injuries, moral injury, and mental health related resources for parents, youth, and so much more. If you visit our website and you scroll down to the bottom of the page, you can sign up for our newsletter. And that will really help ensure that you receive all the information of additional topics we're working on, additional resources or research related to IPV, and help you join our community of veterans and families who are informing the work at the Atlas Institute.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I have it pulled up right now so I can join the newsletter ASAP. And then finally, what are some hope for the long-term impact of these resources on veterans, families, and the broader systems of support in Canada?
Beyond the practical value of the resources we've co-developed with the community, we're hoping that our ongoing work in IPV in veteran communities will increase awareness and improve access to services and programs that meet the needs of veterans and families affected by IPV. We also need programs that support and provide services for clients reporting IPV exposure and training for healthcare providers to effectively discuss and respond to such reports. And in general, I'd say if someone is experiencing IPV right now, we hope that they might seek support.
Absolutely. And making sure that everyone feels empowered and has the community to reach out and these resources to turn to. I truly appreciate you discussing this further with me.
Thanks for joining us on the Her Health podcast, transforming health for women and girls at risk. Remember, your health matters, and together we can make a difference. Until next time, remember to prioritize your health and well-being. For more resources and support on issues affecting girls, women, and gender-diverse people, visit our website at avatraining.ca. This is Dr. Nicole Letourneau. Thank you for listening.